What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the MLB DFS podcast. I'm your host, Christian Hardy, here with Adi Narang. We're going to go through a baseball slate, April 15th. We haven't been on this podcast in a long time, but we decided that we want to bring it back, start doing some MLB podcasts. You know, like, it's good for us, even just going through preparing for this podcast, just to look at the slate ahead of time and get ahead of ourselves on research and before we put out the lock sheet and all that sort of thing. Get like a grip on kind of what's ahead. And so that's kind of what this podcast will be. You know, we probably won't do it every day. We'll probably do it a few times a week, hopefully, but kind of just help you guys how we're looking at this slate overall. You know, obviously we have the Adi's locks and sleepers video, but the breakdown every day.
The breakdown.
And he going through his top hitters and pitchers. But I mean, this will kind of be a little bit more of a full slate look, like more of like, we'll talk about like GPP teams that we like that Adi kind of doesn't get to in his video and that sort of thing. So more of a full breakdown, hopefully, and kind of wanted to get back into it since we're breaking down these slates in our heads and together like every day. So, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely it's something that we've been trying to do to start this whole to start the season, but then we're just working on some other things while the season was getting going. But we're excited to bring it because it's just going to be. I mean, it's just like Christian said, it's just more enjoyable for us to break down the slate like the night before, and then it gives us a little bit of a head start on the actual slate the day of, so it'll be fun. Sure.
Before we get into everything, I'll let you know, if you're just listening to this for the first time, if you're not listening, it's because you're already familiar with us. We're from locksdfs.com. We run a daily fantasy sports site. We have lock sheets, which basically just are positional rankings as well as like value rankings, top stacks. And then basically the biggest thing that we do, which is like in our name, is our locks. Just tell you the three guys that you should be playing on. Basically, you should play that night. You know, just plug them into your lineup that we think they're the best players in the slate. So we have that, and then also on top of that, we have a private chat that we answer questions and that sort of thing. So we do baseball, basketball, that sort of thing. So, and we're at LocksDFS on Twitter. So if you have any questions, you know where to hit us. And I don't think I ever introduced Adi in the beginning of this video, did I?
Fuck it.
He's at really Adi. I'm at by Hardy. That'll all be in the description, so it doesn't really matter. But all right, so we're gonna start. Go ahead.
Well, I said let's get into baseball.
Yeah.
They know who we are. They know.
So I mean, we decided that the best way. A lot of people who do these podcasts kind of go game by game. We thought the best way to do this, just so you can kind of understand how we're kind of like looking at comparing positionally, is just to go position by position and look at guys. And obviously, like then we could spend less time on positions like catcher or like second base, where there might not be as many plays. But obviously we're going to spend a lot of time on pitcher. I mean, that'd probably be a lot of the podcast is probably just spending time at pitcher. It's definitely the most important position when you're talking about daily fantasy baseball. So Adi, I'll let you obviously chime in. But what do you think? Where are you kind of going at the top? Because we've got Noah Syndergaard, Aaron Nola. I don't have the pricing pulled up like exactly, so this isn't in order, but Joey Lucchesi and Trevor Bauer are all kind of the expensive options. Lucchesi's kind of on the lower side of that at $9K. I miss Kershaw, I think, but he's in there too. So 5 guys basically above $9K that you can choose from, all in pretty good spots. I mean, Syndergaard probably in the worst in terms of matchup spot, but still the Phillies only have a 3.8 team total against him. Kershaw coming back off of his injury. We don't know exactly where his pitches will be, but I'll kind of let you go with it. Where do you think you'll be going in terms of expensive pitching?
I mean, it's an interesting slate looking at it early, man. The first thing I noticed was that Trevor Bauer, just to see the highest priced pitcher at only 10.4K, that's kind of interesting in and of itself. I mean, if we just look at Trevor Bauer's price, he was 11.3 versus Toronto, 11K versus Detroit. Obviously, relatively easier matchups compared to Seattle, but he's in a good ballpark, and he's gonna be my favorite high price pitcher just because he just sort of got the least amount of question marks around him. Syndergaard, obviously, as you mentioned, has got a really tough matchup. Clayton Kershaw, he shouldn't be on too strict of a pitch count as far as we know. I mean, he threw 82 pitches in his most recent rehab start, so I could see him being stretched out to 90-ish. He's got a great matchup, but obviously that pitch count question mark, and the fact that his manager is Dave Roberts doesn't help. Aaron Nola, again, I like Aaron Nola. The Mets have been striking out. They've also been hitting the ball well recently. Luis Castillo also above 9K. Deservedly so based on his performance, but not deservedly so based on the matchup. He's going up against the Dodgers, who probably a couple more days until the Dodgers take over the Mariners for leading the league in weighted runs created plus. And then Luke Casey, who's definitely in play. But I think I'm going to settle in on Bauer if I'm going in this top price spot. But I'm actually a little bit more interested in this mid-range. Even these low-price guys are actually – there's one guy down here that I'm actually really interested in seeing his start. But Yu Darvish, for me, is sort of where I'm looking at pitcher to start. Yeah, just a guy. I mean, we targeted him in his most recent game versus Pittsburgh. As many did. He was fairly chalky that slate. His velo, the main thing with him is he had that Texas start where he walked a bunch of guys, gave up a couple bombs, and got pulled after, I believe it was like an inning and a third or something like that, maybe two. And then more of the same. Yeah, more of the same versus Atlanta in the next start. But the big takeaway from that Atlanta start was that his velo ticked back up. There's this great article on FanGraphs y'all can read by Jeff Zimmerman that talks about Yu Darvish's fastball at different velocities. And I mentioned it on one of my own videos. And it's like if Yu Darvish is sitting at 94 miles an hour and above, he has, I believe, like a sub-4. It's 3.86 PERA. But if his fastball is at 93 miles an hour or below, then that PERA jumps almost a full run to like 4.85. His swinging strike rate decreases as well with that. So this is a guy who's heavily dependent on velo, as many starting pitchers are. His velo ticked back up in that Atlanta game, and it was sitting fairly high in that Pittsburgh game as well. I'm on FanGraphs right now. I'm seeing his average velo at 93 miles per hour. It's important to note that it was freezing cold in that game, so I'm sure that had some sort of impact on his velo, as well as the fact that the last two fastballs he threw clocked in at 93.2 and 93.5 miles per hour in the sixth inning. So I think that's definitely worth of note. I was watching that game. He was touching 95 when the game started. So not too concerned about his velo. And the fact that he kind of got blown up in that Pittsburgh game. I mean, he made really only 3 mistakes. He hit the pitcher, and he gave up two home runs, one a 2-run home run after he hit the pitcher. You can blame him hitting the pitcher on the cold, just not being able to get a grip on his breaking ball. So I'm interested in him. And obviously, I guess we should mention the matchup. He's got the best matchup in baseball right now versus the Marlins, almost near the bottom. And I believe they're bottom 5 in weighted runs created plus.
Yeah.
And then they are
bottom
13.
5 and top 10 in strikeouts, I think.
Yeah, top 13. They're 13th in strikeout.
25% though.
Right. So. And the most important note on them is they're last in the league, tied with the Giants for a 6.5% walk rate. And that's big for Yu Darvish because if he does struggle, it's going to be with his command. And this is just not a patient group of hitters. So I'm going to be looking at him, and I think won some ownership.
Oh, yeah, my bad. Did he I'm trying to remember when he gave up that second home run. I know they were to – because he gave that one to Cervelli in like the third inning or something. But
yeah, Marte.
He got pulled with 77 pitches in that game. I'm just trying to remember like why he got pulled so early. Was it the second home run or?
No. It was he gave up 2 soft little singles, and then Madden just came out and pulled him. I don't know. It was a little concerning. It's concerning that he hasn't thrown more than 77 pitches for sure. I mean, he threw 75, 71. Those were 2 bad starts. In this 77 one, I mean, I guess technically he did give up 5 runs. So I think if he's in sort of cruise control mode, which I anticipate he will be, and we haven't heard anything about a pitch count for him, so we sort of have to just take it what it is. So I don't really – I'm not too concerned about it. It is a concern, but it's not going to be enough for me not to play a 7.8K Yu Darvish in Miami. So I'll have a ton of exposure to him.
I think we have another guy in the mid-range that has another great matchup, and that's basically Martin Perez. Facing the Toronto Blue Jays.
Low price range, man. He's the low range.
He's like in low. Yeah, 6'4". Yeah. 6'4" against the Blue Jays, striking at a 29% rate, only walking at 8% rate. Weighted runs created plus at 69 on the season so far. So, great matchup for Perez, who he's had some trouble with like control out of the bullpen, but is getting strikeouts, getting swinging strikes, and he's got a pitch repertoire that's really impressive. Kind of, what's your take on Perez?
Yeah, he's the guy that I'm excited about in this low price range. I think the price on him is the most interesting thing. 6.4K for a guy who a lot of people coming into the season had him as sort of like a late round sleeper that a lot of people were targeting in their seasonal drafts and shit like that. So I'm definitely interested in it, mainly because his velo's ticked up. His velo's up 2 miles per hour, which for any starting pitcher is massive, but for a lefty, it's almost even more coveted. It's more interesting in that sense. So if he's going to touch 96, 97 with that fastball, then it really just comes down to control for him. This is a Blue Jays team that's 21st in the league in walk rate, not the most patient team. And as Christian said, they strike out a ton. Limited sample size out of the bullpen, but he does have a 27% K rate. So that velo does look like it is relevant as far as that K percentage goes. So, I mean, the issue with it comes down to walks, but I don't think it's the safest play. But for 6.4K on a slate where there's a decent amount of bats to get, especially in this Texas game that we'll get into, I don't think he makes for the worst play either as an SP2. I mean, obviously as an SP2, but either as an SP2 to go along with someone like Darvish and pay all the bats, or an SP2 to go along with someone like Bauer, who we mentioned is fairly cheap and can still afford you the luxury of getting a bunch of really good bats.
I'm curious if he is going to be able to keep up his. I mean, I think the K rate right now is probably high, but I mean, last year we saw him sitting at like 5 per 9, somewhere around there, and it's like right now he's striking dudes out like left and right, obviously out of the bullpen, so it's a little different, but. And like in starts last year, it wasn't the same for him, So, I mean, and that's the one thing I did want to say about caution on Martin Perez. Like this is a guy last year who gave up 5.6 xFIP to righties, like a fly ball rate of 30%. Like when he was pitching a home, like this is the guy that we targeted. Like honestly, hard hit rate of 45%. So. Just like I would say that it would make sense, especially if we see some movement on the Blue Jays later in the day in terms of their run total. Like maybe getting a GPP stack against, even though that Blue Jays lineup is quite atrocious. I mean, just the fact that he gives up that much to righties is definitely like something to know and something that you could target if you wanted to and stack up against. But I definitely I'm on the side of like looking at present cash, mostly because again, and we're going mostly on DraftKings pricing here. I should be honestly switching back and forth, but Perez at 6.4 on DraftKings is just a real good price, especially with how he started the year. So.
Right,
And like Adi said, the velo tick up. That's also huge.
Right, and it's good to know with Perez that even when we did target him a bunch in DFS a couple years ago, even as recently as last year, I mean, he still generated ground balls. It's something that he did fairly well. I mean, he had a ground ball rate above 50% the past 3 years, which is great. I mean, it comes up to 60% versus left-handed bats. So it just helps mitigate like ways for his shit to hit the fan, if that makes sense. Just like he'll be better on lefties. He gets ground balls on righties. He could get a double play here or there. So it makes for a fine punt if you believe in him controlling his walks.
I'm curious to know where the ownership goes in terms of the top guys, because someone that I like and we kind of skimmed over, but for me is Joey Lucchesi against the Rockies team that like you said, got going a little bit better today, but has really like struggled. And now they continue this West Coast trip where they're playing in big ballparks. That is like the opposite of what they see in obviously Coors. Like, I like Lucchesi a lot against, I mean, they're striking at 26%. They're not walking. WRC plus is at abysmal 36, like I said before the podcast, which is just, obviously it's going to regress positively, but 36 just to see this many games in the season is pretty nuts. That's just how bad they've been. And the bottom of the lineup literally is reading Desmond, Fuentes, Daza, Iannetta, then the pitcher. So, but I will also say about the Rockies in that matchup is like Garrett Hampson's 3-2 again, and he could end up being chalk multi eligibility even against Lucchesi, like 3-2 for a 2-hole hitter, like pretty damn cheap. Like
yeah, we could see Lucchesi come in a little bit underowned too, because he was pretty popular versus San Francisco last time out in a great matchup, and he really struggled there. Yeah. But I don't think that's indicative of who he is as a talent. I totally agree with that. I've been targeting the Rockies endlessly to start the season, and that's just, I mean, they've been banged up. That's one thing. David Dahl, Daniel Murphy, these guys are out, which obviously doesn't help their cause, but they just haven't been able to hit the ball recently. And this guy, he started the year good. I mean, he's got a 3.81 xFIP to righties, a 0.36 xFIP to lefties, which sounds crazy, and it is because it's a small sample size. But 2018 was more or less the same, just in a bigger sample size. As in, like, he had a 2.59 xFIP to lefties, 3.67 xFIP to righties, which is elite. 61% ground ball rate to lefties, 41% ground ball rate to righties. He does a decent job of getting ground balls. The reason he's so tough on lefties is just because he's got such a funky mechanics as far as pitching. Really hides the ball till the very last second. So it's nearly impossible for lefties to pick that up, which is why he's got – I mean, last year he had an 11.28 K per nine versus lefties and still above a K per nine versus righties. So, no, definitely interested in Joey Lucchesi, which is sort of what we were getting at, that this mid-range of pitcher like Darvish, Lucchesi, as low as Perez and up is pretty interesting. Even guys like Matt Shoemaker, man. Like, Matt Shoemaker's been pitching really, really well. He went into Boston and shut those guys down to a decent extent. I mean, he put up nearly 17 fantasy points in the 2 prior matchups. He was over 30. He's a guy that we've known for a while has been pretty talented. When he was with the Angels, he used to have games like double-digit strikeout games, and it would be really tantalizing. And then he'd have games where he would just walk a bunch of guys. But if he's putting things together as well, then this matchup versus Minnesota, it's not going to be something that I shy away from, even though Minnesota is a slightly improved offensive team this year.
Going to be cold there too, which is nice.
Right, for sure.
So that's always a plus. Yeah, thinking about like Lucchesi and thinking about those like Lucchesi, Kershaw, Bauer. It's like I'm not going to be playing any of these bats after 8:00 Eastern. So like if I'm not playing bats, I'm like I know it's not like good to think about your team in terms of times, but I'm just saying like I'm not going to have anyone in this late game if I don't have a pitcher. Like I can almost unless I find someone price wise that fits and makes sense. Like
you're saying you're not going to have any bats later, is what you're saying?
In those 3 late games, Rockies, Padres, Reds, Dodgers, Indians, Mariners, I'm not going to have any bats in those games. So, like, I kind of want exposure, like, in terms of getting a pitcher. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I mean, I agree. It's never good to look at your team based on –
It's not good to look at your team that way. Definitely not. I don't advise it. I'm just saying, like, I'm going to be thinking about it when I am building my cash team tomorrow. Like,
but if you obviously are looking at those games, like, you're not going to target any bats from them, then obviously there's going to be good pitchers in those games to look towards, you know?
Yeah.
So it makes sense in that regards. I will look towards some of these Dodgers, though. I think they'll come in quite under-owned versus a Luis Castillo who's been good but could easily implode.
Yeah, away from home, it's like away from home, he's definitely a guy that you can target. And the 9.5K price against the Dodgers on the road, like, doesn't make any sense. But I mean, I guess the K upside is there for 9.5, but
I mean, DK's prices recently I've seen very like adjusted based on performance as opposed to expectation, if that makes sense. Like this is, I mean, it's he should be priced higher if it's on performance, but 9.5K is great. And what was that guy? Excuse me, it was like a slate yesterday, a couple of days ago, where there was a pitcher who was substantially cheaper than he should have been. I can't recall it all.
I mean, Homer Bailey was really cheap. He was 5.8.
Oh, Homer Bailey, that 80% on Homer Bailey, that was the best slate ever.
He was so cheap, man. Like 5.8.
We're like what?
He struck out like 8 guys, didn't he?
Bro, we were like 8 days into the season, and Homer Bailey was like the obvious chalk that day. Like 8 days into the season, and he looked good, man. I mean, whatever he's changed has looked good, man.
Yeah,
he's pitching well.
Yeah, I went to that game that he pitched in against Seattle. He was doing all right.
Yeah, that little splitter is nasty.
Other than that, towards the end of his start, he started walking guys. All right, let's kind of go into some bats now. And I this is our first time doing this, but let's just kind of go. Do you want to talk about general spots to target first, and then kind of go to position, or do you want to talk? Because I think that would be. I think that would be the best way to kind of look into it. Instead of just saying let's just play these players, like we can kind of say, okay, here are some teams first, and then let's go into like position. Like here's some good prices that we like. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can go in any order. Either stacks, position, and some home run calls, or maybe position, stacks, then home run calls, whatever works. But as long as we come with those 3.
Yeah, let's run through some stacks. And I mean, the game we didn't talk about in terms of pitching like at all, we didn't touch on either side is this Angels Rangers game. We don't have a total for it yet, but it's probably going to be the highest on the slate. I would imagine. Trevor Cahill versus Shelby Miller, Texas ballpark in Arlington, 76 degrees. We don't know if Mike Trout's going to be in. That's why the total is not out, I'm assuming. But you have such cheap Angel bats coming up against Shelby Miller in a pretty bad Rangers bullpen. That seems like a good spot to target there to me. I'll kind of let you go from there because that's kind of probably, in terms of like a game stack, the top of the list.
Right. No, I agree. I think that is probably my top game stack on the slate. I think that White Sox KC game could be interesting, rivaling that. But yeah, I mean, let's just talk about Shelby Miller. Shelby Miller's walking 12 batters per 9 to lefties and 14 batters per 9 to righties. Obviously, this is like a 5-inning sample size, so don't take that too seriously. But it goes to show that this is a guy that struggles with command. When you want to stack teams, you want to target against guys that struggle with home runs and struggle with walks. And when both of these two pitchers struggle, they struggle with home runs and they struggle with walks.
Yeah.
Last year, Shelby Miller had a 4.05 home run per 9 to righties, 2 home run per 9 to lefties. That was only in a 15-inning sample size, but I don't think we have to keep going back into the years to let you know that he's not a good pitcher, giving up plus 40% contact each of his last 3 years in the league. All of those small sample sizes, but put together, it's worth taking as is. And then Trevor Cahill, a guy who's he's not that bad versus righties. But I mean, Trevor Cahill is a guy that we're probably going to end up playing a few times this year. If he's pitching at Angels Park versus a righty-heavy lineup, I'll play Trevor Cahill. He's got good strikeout stuff. But pitching in Arlington versus a lineup that's as lefty-heavy as this Rangers lineup is, with Chu, Odor, Mazzara, Gallo, Guzman, all these guys, I have no interest in targeting him. He has a 1.42 home runs per 9 to lefties this year with a 6.30 xFIP. That comes with a 57% fly ball rate and a 35% hard hit rate. All those stuff play right into the hands of this Rangers lineup. And also, he's a guy that last year walked almost 4 batters per inning to both-handedness. So, like I said, home runs and walks is how a pitcher gets out of the game real quick. And so they could definitely drive both of these pitchers from the game real fast.
Yeah, I know. Again, a small sample, and this is only 6 innings versus lefties. But he wasn't quite. He was had around a 4 xFIP last year versus lefties. But in the small sample we have this year, 6.3 xFIP to lefties. And also on the Texas guys, I mean, other than Gallo at 4.9, really all these guys should be priced a little bit higher. You have Chu at 4.2, Mazzara 4.2, Asdrubal at 4.2. All pretty good prices to me. Guys that I think can absolutely just slot into your lineup as really solid plays. I forgot what else I was going to say about that. But and then you mentioned we'll touch on that again when we go position by position in a second. But we have Royals White Sox. Irvin Santana on the mound for the White Sox. Royals get a positive park shift, and then you've also got the Royals bullpen in this. All kind of coming together, making this, I believe it's the highest total that is out right now. Yeah, so kind of who are some bats you're looking at? Which side do you want to target more? And you want to talk about Heath Fillmyer and Irvin Santana at all?
Yeah, sure. I mean, both of them are trash. We'll start there. But I mean, Heath Fillmyer actually has a decent profile, like a serviceable profile. He
like
gets
run prevention kind of stuff.
Yeah, as far as run prevention goes, he can generate a fair amount of ground balls when he's on. He's got good sinking action on his pitches, so he's definitely a guy that could put up a good game. But he just walks way too many guys for my liking. Same with Irvin Santana. Both these guys have had horrible starts to the year. And it's worth noting that both of these – I know I'm kind of jumping over the place. It's worth noting that both of these White Sox catchers are not good throwing catchers. They're not good defensive catchers, Wellington Castillo or James McCann. So definitely an interesting spot to target a lot of this speed in this Kansas City lineup. Witt, Mondesi, both guys that I'm going to be looking towards on the road. As Christian said, a pretty big positive park shift in their favor, going from Kaufman to Comerica. What's this park called?
I think not Comerica.
Cellular.
Oh man, I should know it.
It's the cellular one, but wherever. It's a hitter friendly park. US Cellular, something like that.
Yeah.
US
Oh no, they changed it. Guaranteed rate field.
Guaranteed. Sure, let's go with that.
They changed it last year, I think. Yeah.
All right, cool. We'll go with that. So, but yeah, definitely a positive park shift for Kansas City. So I'm going to be looking to a lot of speed in this lineup. Looking to some power that's always going to be cheap as far as like guys like O'Hearn, Alex Gordon. is always underpriced for whatever reason. He's up to 4.2 now, so he's not sitting at his sub 4 as he usually is, but still worth targeting for me. Jorge Soler is a guy that's been hitting the ball way better recently, just homered again today. So, yeah, really interested in both sides of this game. I mean, I'm actually just looking at some of these White Sox prices for the first time.
Right.
What
I
are
was just about to say I almost am a little bit more interested in the White Sox because Soler is priced up to 4.2, Gordon's priced up to 4.2. I really like O'Hearn's price at 3.7. I mean, he's a righty master, and the park shift is going to be great for him. That's an awesome price. I don't know who else at first base yet, genuinely, but that seems like an awesome price. But yeah, go ahead on the White Sox.
No, I mean, I'm this is, as we talked about, this is a first look. So we pulled up the slate 30 minutes ago, and we're looking through this, and I'm looking through these White Sox prices, and I did not notice this the first time. I mean, I don't know why Yonder Alonso's 3.9K, Eloy Jimenez is also 3.9K.
Jose, awesome play.
Yeah, Jose Abreu 4.3. Moncada's priced up at 4.8, but that's deservedly so. He's been nails to start this year. He's been everything off his bat has made a different sort of sound. Like it's just I'm high on this. I mean, they have a 5 implied team total right now, and I wouldn't be surprised to see that over get hit a little bit with 2 bad teams with 2 bad bullpens as well.
I think catcher, and I guess let's talk one more spot that we could talk about offenses, and then we'll get into position by position. But I mean, Castillo is projected as the starting catcher for the White Sox, and I think it's probably going to be between a catcher unless you're going way down. Both Lucroy and Castillo in those good spots are 3.5, so middle of the order type players. So the last spot, and it's much less targetable because of the pitchers to me. They're just not as exciting to stack against as Phil Meyer and Irvin Santana, which is why I think that total is going to go up, and this one might end up kind of flatting. But it's the Cardinals and the Brewers playing in Miller Park. Freddie Peralta is not a pitcher that we really want to target, but a team that we can stack up on and who has a 5.2 team total as we're recording this right now is the Brewers. And again, as I said, in Miller Park against Dakota Hudson. And Hudson again is a guy that I think limits a lot of hard contact and that sort of thing, but so I mean, if you're trying to pay up for a guy, like getting a Brewer makes some sense, like a Yelich or a Kane or something like that. But
for sure. Yeah, I mean Dakota Hudson. I guess we'll start with what he does well. He's sort of in the Phil Meyer range in the sense that he can generate ground balls when he's on. I mean, very small sample size, obviously, again to start this year, but it actually goes in. We have about. In the majors, we have about a 30-inning sample size on this guy. And he generated ground balls at a plus 50% rate. I mean, he's at 86.7% right now to righties, which is insane.
Yeah, AAA numbers in 17 and 18 are both at 57% for ground balls, so he does get them.
Yeah, so he generates ground balls, so it's always tough. It hurts to stack against good ground ball specialists because your stack can go to shit real quick if double plays are how you ruin a stack is what I'm trying to say. But what's important to note in this matchup is that he struggles versus lefties. He's giving up a 30% line drive percentage to lefties with a 53% hard hit rate. And that goes along with a walk rate of over 10 batters per 9. All of these will regress down a little bit because it's a small sample size. But the biggest takeaway is that he struggles with lefties here. And this, I mean, 5.54 xFIP. And this carries over to 2018 as well. And now he's going into Miller Park, which is, I believe, the second friendliest park for lefty power behind Coors Field. And I might be third behind SunTrust too, but it's a great park for lefties. It's a great hitter's park overall. And this Milwaukee lineup is sort of like the Texas Rangers, but more talented in the sense that they have Christian Yelich, Travis Shaw, Moose, and then they got very talented righties sprinkled in like Braun, Aguilar, and Kane. Makes a ton of sense that these guys would have a team total as high as it is. What'd you say, 5.2 right now? Yeah, and then when you couple that with the Cardinals, they're coming back from Mexico, and they have a 5.4 xFIP. Their bullpen has a 5.4 xFIP, which is fourth worst in the league.
I forgot about that. I forgot about how their bullpen has struggled so far.
Yeah, it's been garbage to start the year. And again, I mean, they're traveling. They're gonna get to Milwaukee today. So I think this is a great spot for Milwaukee. I'm actually surprised we didn't talk about them sooner. They're probably one of my favorite stacks on this on this entire slate. Mainly because when you're stacking them, at least you're stacking really talented bats. But if you're stacking like the Angels, it's just like it just doesn't feel good, you know.
It's like if Mike Trout is in the lineup, you don't even know if they're going to score a run.
Right, exactly. If he's not in the lineup, right, exactly, yeah.
And then just to kind of wrap up the stacks real quick. What's a GPP stack for you? And I think there's a pretty obvious one on this slate. But
I mean, I think it's the Dodgers, man.
The Dodgers, right? Like,
yeah,
his prices on the Dodgers. I mean, they priced them down as if like they're facing Scherzer pretty much.
Right, and let's give Castillo his credit. It's through 19 innings, through 19 innings, he's got a 15 K per nine to lefties and a 2.27 xFIP, a 3.72 xFIP to righties, K'ing just around a batter per inning. He's getting ground balls as he usually does, 55% ground ball rate to start this year. 2018 was more or less the same for him as far as ground balls go. I mean, he still generated it was like 47% ground ball rate. Still got Ks, just under a K per nine. He was a lot better at home. He had a 3.02 xFIP at home while having a 4.31 xFIP on the road. And his Ks per nine dropped by nearly 3.5 between home and away. I couldn't even tell you why that is. Because Great American Ballpark, where he does pitch, is not that it's not as big of a hitter's park as I think people make it out to be. But it's still a very good hitter's park.
I think the biggest thing is it's short. I think it has short fences. I think like home run wise, it plays really well.
Right, exactly. It's real well. It's real good for home runs, but aside from that, it profiles as a pretty neutral park. But if we do go based on his 2018 numbers, which we would expect him to more or less regress towards, he did have a 4.3 xFIP to lefties with a 2.06 home run per nine. And that was pretty in line with his hard hit percentage, which was 43% to lefties and a 37% fly ball rate. I mean, and again, like the theme of this video has just been lefty slug teams with a bunch of lefty sluggers, but we have the Dodgers again with Bellinger, Seager, Jock, Muncy, all these guys in this lineup that
don't forget Kershaw.
Hey man, Kershaw slugs sometimes. But yeah, I mean, and another thing with Castillo is he does run into his fair share of walk issues. I mean, he can lose command. He almost walked, I believe, close to 4 batters per nine in 2018, 4 lefties per nine. He had a higher walk rate versus lefties. But this lineup's going to be primarily lefty, so that's why I'm concerning myself with that. Yeah. So I think, and then these prices, obviously, like their prices if they're facing a total A. I mean,
Bellinger's like the only guy that didn't price down pretty much.
Yeah, and that's just because his recent performance, you couldn't price him down based on his. What does he have, like 9 home runs or something?
Yeah, crazy.
Like that. Yeah, and I mean, Jock 4.3, Seager's 4K, Justin Turner and Pollock are both sub 4K, coming in at 3.9 and 3.5. Just awesome spots for these guys, and I don't anticipate Castillo generating any ownership just because of the matchup, but if he happens to, all the more better.
And that's one thing I want to say. One quick, my other stack I mentioned already when we were talking about Perez, but if we do, like I said, we're recording this at 10 p.m. the night before, so it's hard to know where ownership is going to go. But if we do see a lot of ownership on Martin Perez, which we have no idea. We like him on the surface, but if other people don't, so be it. But if he is end up being pretty chalky at that price, I think a huge leverage play would be the Blue Jays. Though, again, like the Blue Jays have played terribly this year. The bottom of the lineup is absolutely just disgustingly filthy. Like they have Richard Urena batting 6th. Like it's gross. Like, but still, I mean, Perez can give up hard hit fly balls quite quickly and just give him up. So,
and one thing the Blue Jays do is they do lean pretty right-handed.
Right.
Teoscar, Grichuk, Smoke, Galvis, both switch hitters. Danny Jansen, their catcher. All these guys, Drury, all these guys are decent lefty hitters.
Go ahead.
I agree with that ownership thing. I think that's probably the biggest change I've made in my personal DFS game coming into this year. It's just looking way harder at ownership than I do at anything else. It's the most important thing that you could look at on a slate. Is getting gauges on how owned guys are going to be, because all you have to do is you're not trying to be right. Basically, you're just trying to be right more than everyone else is, based on the ownership percentages. So if everyone else thinks Martin Perez deserves to be 60% owned, then all you have to do is or whatever ownership percentage we give to him, then all you have to do is be right 40% of the time, or whatever that equals to be plus EV as far as that goes. So it's all about ownership for me.
I would also say about ownership in baseball that's important is like it's the one sport where if one guy does bad, the hitters on the other team are doing great. Like, it has so immense leverage, because if the guy who's owned gets hit and gives up 5 runs in 3 innings and he's negative, those guys who have Perez are dead, and the hitters are going off. Like there's the only leverage you could really use like that in basketball or football is like playing the second receiver instead of the high-O number 1 receiver on a team, like that sort of leverage, but it's not like as direct as it is in baseball, where it's like if you fade the really high-owned pitcher like that gets hit hard, then that is a big step up on the field.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Okay, all right. Should we go position by position now, I guess? I mean, I think it should be pretty quick, because I mean, we talked about the teams we like. If we want to talk about other guys that stand out to us as we go through pricing real quick, we'll mention them. How about that? Just roll through it real quick. So what I do when I'm actually – this is actually what I do when I'm on the lock sheet. I've mentioned this when we've done podcasts before, but I love this. I love the Fantasy Labs lineups page. I think it's a really good tool. Like, has all the prices right in front of me. So that's what I'm going to use for my projected lineups. And it has the price right in front of me. So it'll be nice to use. Like I said, so let's just go from catcher. And we're going to use DraftKings pricing. I don't think we're going to have time to go through FanDuel and DraftKings. It's just going to be too much work. They're so different. There's guys on DraftKings that are priced like $4K. Then on FanDuel, you get it over there and it's like 2-4 for like some like Teoscar could be 2-4 on FanDuel. I'd be like, oh, okay.
Right.
Like, you just never know what they're doing over there. There's always some random guys that are mispriced. But all right. So I mentioned catcher last time, but probably just gonna try to get one of these guys that on the teams we targeted: the Royals, White Sox, Angels, because they're all cheap. Lucroy at 3.5, Maldonado at 2.9. If you really want to punt, that's like the punty punt. And then Wellington Castillo at 3.5. Anywhere else you see outside of that game?
I'm interested in Castillo at 3.5 for sure. I think that this, just the way pitching's shaping up, this could definitely be a spot where I end up paying up at catcher and going with the Yasmani Grandal. He's 4.5K. But as we talked about, this is an awesome spot for Milwaukee. So like, loading up on these guys, he hits right in the middle of that lineup. I believe he was hitting like cleanup a couple days ago, ahead of Moose, ahead of Shaw. So I'm interested in paying up here.
I love playing switch hitters against bad bullpens too. Just right. The fact no matter who they bring in, like he can hit him so well on either side. And Yasmani's so balanced that
right.
It's awesome. I like that too. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but that's probably it for catcher. For me, catcher is the position that we'll probably spend 30 seconds every podcast.
Right. It's the easiest one to go through. All right, first base. If we go through the games that we were mentioning, like I said, O'Hearn at 3.7, awesome. But you also got on the other side of that, Yonder Alonso on the other side at 3.9.
Right.
You have Abreu at 4.3. And then you do have Pujols at 3.6 too. So I mean, I think I like the other guys more in the other game, but I will say Pujols at 3.6, not terrible. If Trout's in, but
yeah, not terrible.
But there's a lot of first base options on this slate because you've got Travis Shaw 3.9 too.
Right. Travis Shaw's 3.9, huh?
Yeah, but you can play him at third. You can play him at third too. So.
For sure. I mean, Jesus Aguilar's 3.9 as well. I mean, Yonder at 3.9 is a guy that I'm probably looking at right now the most. Just an awesome matchup for him versus a Heath Fillmyer who struggles versus lefties. We went over his numbers a little bit, but just to reiterate, 6.65 xFIP to lefties this year. Last year, it was about 4.85. 35% hard hit rate, 30% line drive rate, or 25% line drive rate. So good spot for these lefties. I like Yonder here right now early.
Yeah. And then we mentioned the Dodgers, the GVP plays kind of, but other than that,
for sure you'll probably get the hottest hitter in baseball at sub 8% owned. Never
a bad thing to do. Just like when you saw get the Bryce Harper, Mike Trout slate. I mean, there's really never slates anymore where Mike Trout goes like 2 under owned, to be honest with you. But it does happen with Bryce. It does happen with Bryce quite a bit. It's always nice when you can just play a guy that no one's gonna have.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in general, all those late games, no one's going to really own. But all right, let's move on to second base. That should kind of give you a few guys to play at first. Second base, we have I'm just gonna scroll. I mean, we have Witt, obviously, and that's gonna be the top, like the stud guy that you're gonna be looking at.
Yeah, Witt, Moose is right there at 4.3.
Right under that, yeah. And Price is Moose right after that. And then value, you have like a leadoff. I've got a projected leadoff Zobrist against Trevor Richards. That is fine. It works.
Yeah, it sucks. Odor's placed on the 10-day,
right.
Man. I would have loved Odor at this spot, 3.8K. That would have been so fun to play. But I mean, everyone else would have played him too. But
if Fletcher leads off in front of Trout, definitely like that. If there's no Trout, I'm gonna have less interest in the Angels if there's no Trout, but I'll still have some Angels probably. But 3-6 in Rangers ballpark and Shelby Miller is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So
for sure, yeah, I can echo all those thoughts. I think that's probably.
And then if you want the punty punt, the punt, like if you're trying to pay over two pitchers, Garrett Hampson 3-2. He bats second. It works.
Yeah, not bad. I mean, not bad. Robinson Cano. I know he's got a tough matchup versus Aaron Nola, but he's sitting at 3.5K.
I missed that.
I mean, this guy took Scherzer deep to start the year, so I guess matchups, do what you want with him. But Nola hasn't been great to start this year. A couple bad starts versus Washington, so definitely a spot you can look to if you want a talented hitter at a sub 3.6K price.
No one's gonna play Nola tomorrow against the Mets. I mean, if you're looking for a low-owned guy, I'm not really gonna endorse it because I'd rather just pay up for Syndergaard if you're trying to play a pitcher in that game. But
I'm interested in seeing some of these ownership projections as they come out, man. Because I'm interested to see Bauer's ownership, guys like that. Like
Bauer versus I think Bauer will come in as the highest owned.
I do too, just because he should be based on talent.
He's only 10-4. He's only 10-4. Like, why is he that cheap?
But I don't know how the public is perceiving Yu Darvish. But I would anticipate him being the highest owned SP.
That's
as far as all SPs go, not just the high price guys. And then after that, it's like you could go Lucchesi, Bauer. There's a bunch of guys you could go with,
especially in this park in Miami. Like, they just work so well for you as long as he just doesn't get crazy with the walks. It's like so high.
I think you said it to me when we were talking about you 7.4K versus Pittsburgh, and we were talking about our teams and our builds prior to lock, and you were just like, I'm gonna just make that play. If it doesn't work out, it was still the right play, and even in this matchup, and it did sort of. I mean, he wasn't awful. I believe we still cast that slate.
Yeah.
But it's just the same thing. 7 point whatever he is, 8K in Miami. It's just the right play. Like if it doesn't work out, it's still the right play.
Okay, third base. First guy I pull up, Matt Carpenter's 3.8.
That's huge for me.
I'm
glad you brought that up. Yeah, 3.8. He's going up against a guy that got some company. He's going up against a guy that only throws fastballs. Freddie Peralta throws a 4-seamer and a 2-seam fastball. They both come in at like 91 miles an hour. And Matt Carpenter's arguably the best fastball hitter in the league. I mean, you guys remember his crazy run from last year. That was because pitchers just kept throwing him fastballs, basically. So if that's going to happen again, it's a great lefty park. He's a lefty batter in Miller Park.
Yeah.
Love that spot for him.
I would love to know Carp's splits last year for Miller because, I remember loving to play him in Miller last year, and it usually worked out for me. I don't know.
You could play that dude anywhere, though, man. Last year, you could play.
Yeah, for sure, true. That's a good point.
You could play that dude on fucking Mars. He would be good.
But, we mentioned the Milwaukee guys, Moose and Shaw. They're both third base eligible, so they're interesting. Fletcher again. I'm not too interested in Fletcher. And then Moncada is a high-priced guy that's going to face a Royals bullpen that's pretty trash, and Phil Meyer, who basically might as well be in the bullpen. Dude's not good. And then I'd probably the only guy – you have Justin Turner as a 3.9K, solid price on him as well. I prefer Carpenter around the same price or right under him.
And then if you
go ahead.
If you do want to pay up Moncada, 4.8K is but we've already talked about these lefties enough, but probably worth noting Moncada has been one of the hottest hitters to start the league. Not the hottest. I'll go to Bellinger. But 328 average, 3 home runs. He's already driven in 13. He's mashing extra base hits. He looks like why he was the top prospect.
Yeah, and like not out of nowhere. Like he was the top. Like this is 4.8K on Yon is like not surprising. Like
right.
And a guy who can run too.
Right. Right.
Like. And then the last thing I'll mention is Asdrubal Cabrera, 4.2K. If he bats fifth, right there, I like that against against Cahill.
Yeah.
Don't love it, but it works.
It's just good exposure to that spot. I
Yeah.
probably wouldn't play him as a one-off, but as part of a stack, I would definitely
Right.
play him. Yeah.
Shortstop at the top, you got Mondesi at 5.1K. That's a nice one.
It's
DeYoung at
priced on me.
4 is decent, but I'm not too interested in that.
It's Seager, man. For me, I'm looking at Seager at 4K. I know it's a tough matchup, but it's a good hitter, man. Like it's 4K for a great hitter. Cincinnati's not got the best bullpen. They're the other team that's traveling from Mexico, so who knows what kind of effects that could have. I like that price on him, man. I really do.
Yeah. He's been underpriced for most of the year.
Paul DeYoung's another dead fastball hitter.
Yeah, that's kind of I mentioned him too. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
That it's always nice. It's interesting the lineup they built where it's just like a bunch of guys who can hit fastballs.
Yeah, they do. I mean, they've got Goldschmidt, Yachty, both those guys, great fastball hitters, great fastball hitters as well. Yeah.
And then Simmons at 3.9 is fine. I would like him more if he's hitting leadoff, but and if Trout's in the lineup, both of those give him boost. If I haven't projected a third, or not me, but Fantasy hasn't projected him a third. Don't like him as much, but still 3.9, hard to argue with that price. And then Andrews on the other side at 4.2 is also a fine play. I'd say probably kind of rounds that.
And the GPP shortstop is going to be Tatis every single day. That dude is just so freaking good, man.
Yeah.
Like he's so good. Power speed. He just homered in back-to-back games. I'm on Tatis, man. He homered off Greinke, made it look easy. This dude's amazing. So like at 4.1K, like you can take advantage of that for as long as you want until
they have so many ways they can build that first six in that lineup. Like they have so many ways they can just mix and match it around. It'll be interesting to see how they, especially as they get Tatis more playing time.
Yeah, as long as they drop Hosmer down a little bit.
Yeah.
Like as long as he's
tried it a few times. Like I said the other day, I think he batted 5th or 6th or something like that. So they messed around with it a little bit already. So
they just don't have any other lefties to split up all those righties.
Right.
Like split up Myers and Renfroe and Tatis and Margot and all these guys. Arias, if he ever gets called up to the top spot in that lineup, like let's do outfield though.
Let's do outfield. I'm scrolling like from the top of games, so like time wise, that's where it's kind of coming from. But let's just start with the best plays, I guess, instead of going from the top of game. If Trout's in, he's probably the top hitter on the slate.
If
we hear
just copy and paste that for every baseball slate ever. Retires.
Yeah, I mean, he gets to play in Texas, so it's always awesome to play Mike Trout in Texas. Like there's always a decent shot at a 2-home run game when he's playing in a ballpark like this. But other side of that, then Calhoun at 3.8, depending on where he's hitting, another guy you can play there.
He'll be probably leading off, man. So
yeah, they have Fletcher leading off here, and I mean I don't know how many times we've even gotten that this year. I mean I know he has hit there this year, but
typically versus lefties, you'll see Fletcher lead off. Not too sure about versus righties. I think that'll primarily be Calhoun's spot. But Yelich at 5.4, really interesting as well, especially if Trout sits. Then it kind of leaves that void of who to pay up for. Yelich will be that guy for me. Gallo, another guy that
all those Rangers,
all these ranges, man. Gallo is Chu still 4.2K.
Chu point per dollar is probably gonna be the top outfielder though.
Chu and Mazara are both 4.2K, which is two other amazing spots. Chu's been 4.2K for a minute. And I just been sort of taking advantage of that.
Really like those White Sox prices. Garcia at 4.2 and Eloy at 3.9.
Eloy at 3.9 is fun.
Both those guys are real nice. I'm not too much, except for Witt, who can play a second. Not on these Royals as much, just because they're priced up. They're fine though. They're fine. It's just Alex Gordon paying 4.2 for Alex Gordon. You play for 4.2 for Shin-Soo Choo just doesn't really equate in my head quite right. So. I'm with them. But I don't think they're bad plays. I mean, against Urban Santana and a bad bullpen and a positive park, I don't think they're bad plays, but really.
I would much prefer those Texas bats though, for sure.
For sure. And then again, you have another, if Zobrist leads off at 3.6, he's okay. Nimmo is at 3.6. Against Nola, interesting GVP play if you want to stack him up with Robbie or something like that, or stack him up with Conforto in a GVP or something like that. Both those are kind of interesting. And then you mentioned Yelich. It's probably not going to get to Kane or Braun much, but they work. They're fine. Anything else you're seeing?
Nah, man, that's really all I see.
Then the Dodger guys, Jock
And the
Paul.
Dodgers.
Paul gets 3.5. So
Right. That shit is crazy, man.
so, I mean, they're just gonna keep him down here until he just starts hitting better. I guess I don't know.
He led off versus a righty just a couple games ago and went 2 for 5. So, I mean, 2 for 5, 2 hits, 2 runs scored, 1 strikeout, 10 DK points. You know, man, like
Right.
5. Throw some respect on his name, please.
Yeah, I mean, he's had an up and down kind of career. I'm curious to see if he can regress back to where he has
Like those
been.
Arizona days where he was just slugging every day right in front of
Yeah.
Paul Goldschmidt. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was fun. They won me my first MLB GPP, man. That Arizona stack. Everyone was on cores, and it was pre-humidor when Arizona was like the second best hitting ballpark in baseball, and that was sick. I was getting those D-backs at like sub 5% owned.
I still love playing the D-backs when the roof is open. It's a good.
Say it again.
I still like playing those D-backs when the roof is open. Right now, it's nice. It's nice to play them right now, especially when you get like a righty in there and Catel's hitting, and you play him at second base or outfield, and there's all kinds of different. Peralta obviously has been pretty cheap all year, but
for sure.
All right, I think that's pretty much gonna wrap it up.
You want to do some home run calls real quick?
Yeah, you do the home run calls on the podcast, but
I do. Yeah.
on the video, but.
They're just fun, you know. It's just fun to call guys for home runs. So let's do what I do on the video. Let's just do one guy each above 4K and then one guy below 4K. So let's do our high price guys first. You do yours, and then I'll do mine. So you
high
go
price
ahead.
first.
Yeah, we'll each do a high price, then we'll each do our low price.
Man,
just because I figured I caught you off, I caught you off guard with it.
Yeah,
so like,
yeah.
I
have my low price already, actually, so that's good.
Okay, you got that? All right, then do low price first.
All right, low price is Ryan O'Hearn.
Oh,
okay. I like it. I mean, he just mashes righties. I mean, he mashed him last year, and he gets him again this year. Love the park shift. I love it. It's a little cold, but other than that,
I'll take it because you didn't take who I was going to say. I'm going to take Matt Carpenter. 3.8K.
Oh my goodness!
That was the easiest one. It was right there.
Yeah.
But Yonder was a close second for me.
For
so
sure.
I'll go. But I liked O'Hearn call for sure. But yeah, I'll go. Carp.
Isn't it expensive? I'll hear yours.
Hoping you don't take mine.
You go first. I just want to make sure.
All right. I mean, I'll take the most obvious guy. Like, I'll take Christian Yelich here. Like, we know he's gonna play. Dakota Hudson gets slugged by lefties. I'll go Christian Yelich as my high price bomb. 5.4K works for me.
That's a pretty good one.
There's another guy that's like an easy call every single day. Let's see if you get that.
I mean, try if he plays, but also Gallo.
Boom, there it is.
Yeah, Gallo versus Cahill. The only thing I'm worried about with these Rangers, and the reason I'm hesitant to stack up with them and like pay up, is just because Angels, again, decent bullpen, and Cahill, like we mentioned, like he can just get ground ball after ground ball after ground ball. And I want to believe in the Rangers lineup, like with all these lefties. I think they can put something together. But Gallo is just being Gallo this year, you know, just hitting home runs and striking out at like whatever clip. I mean, he's been striking out a lot. Per usual.
Yeah, he's like, I think he's above 30 now.
Yeah, it's been so far. I just remember watching a game the other day and being like, wow, he's striking out a ton.
He's taking some more walks, a few more walks this year too. He's really just 3 true outcomes, man. That's who he is.
18 strikeouts and 41 ABs.
Yeah, that's
a lot.
Yeah. But hey, man, if he makes contact, then your high price guy's gonna hit a home run if he makes contact. So,
right,
there we go. We'll go.
This the podcast was way longer than we thought it was gonna be. So we might have
how long is this?
I don't know. I'm not to find out when I end it. But I guess we'll mention it since you didn't mention it at the beginning. But we are gonna post this on YouTube. So if you are watching on YouTube, if you like, comment. I guess we don't really know who likes the video actually. So if you comment, we appreciate the likes. So like it if you liked it. If you like the advice, we appreciate it.
Yeah.
Comment. You'll be entered to win a free pass from us. Adi's gonna pick one in his video tomorrow morning. Every Monday he'll pick a new winner to win a free pass for the season. And then so just comment maybe with your favorite play, maybe with if you want to see some certain things on this podcast, let us know.
Yeah, absolutely.
can
As you guys can tell, it was sort of free flowing, not a ton of structure here. So if you do want to have some segment, I mean, we like it like this. Like this is how I'd prefer to do it. But if y'all want to see some segments, like us talk about some things in specific, then please do let us know because obviously we'll do that.
Or even just if we mention things, and this is something that I'm always curious about with baseball because a lot of people don't follow baseball analytics super closely. If you were like confused about something we're talking about and need to know, we would love to know that because like we want to help you guys understand kind of where we're coming from all the time. So, all right. With all that said, I think we're good though. I'm at by Hardy on Twitter. Adi's is at really Adi on Twitter. Those are both me in the bio. But yeah, make sure you like the video. We appreciate it. Love y'all, and we will see you guys next time. See you guys soon.
We'll keep doing these, but
Tuesday, maybe Thursday. We'll see you all soon. All right, peace.